Welcome to Blended Life. I'm Eric. This is my wife, Julie.
Hey, you guys.
And today I have no facial hair.
I know.
The viewers are probably wondering what the heck is going on.
They're like, who's that new man?
I know. One of my many hats I wear, I have to be able to
It's really loud.
put on a respirator. So, hence is the no hair on my face so I can get a good seal. All right. What? The jokes.
What? I sit on your face?
Oh, my
gosh.
Nope. I'm just kidding. What's tonight's topic now that we're a minute in?
That's really loud.
Is it? All right.
Yeah, well, welcome at 3 o'clock. I know we're recording at an odd hour.
Yeah.
So, interesting. But anyway, thanks for tuning in, you guys. I thought today we could talk about what we discuss with our kids.
Oh.
Like what we choose to discuss with our kids.
Okay.
How we choose to discuss it. You know, truths that we tell, truths that we omit.
Right.
You know, how hard is it to hold your tongue when you just want to let it all out?
Yeah.
So.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah, so, I mean.
I see you made me a big sheet
I
list
did.
of...
I typed out our notes today.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to put mine way over here. Let me know where we are.
You're not going to at all look at them. All right, but what do we discuss with our children? I mean, you're pretty, well.
I'm pretty open with the kids as far as life goes.
Right.
I mean, obviously there's some boundaries, but.
Well, let's talk about that.
Okay, go for it.
What are your boundaries when you're choosing what to discuss with your children? I mean, I'm going to say in regards to parents just do not hold back and then just tell the kids everything.
Hang on,
I don't know if that's the answer.
Start this.
Oh, we're starting again.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Eric. This is my wife, Julie. We are Blended Life. And as usual, having technical difficulties, which is kind of ironic. I've been doing this type of stuff literally for 25 years of my life.
Yeah.
And I have never had more technical difficulties in the entire 25 years than I have in the last 3 months of doing Blended Life.
You know why that is. I totally can answer why that is.
Yeah.
Because we're doing something that matters.
Yeah.
And
so
I
you're saying for the last 25 years I've been doing nothing that matters?
Not like this, babe. This is helping people.
Yeah, I know.
But my point is, I think that when you do something that is helping people, you know, it gets challenged.
Right.
You know, I think that there's evil out there.
Speaking of challenging, what's tonight's topic about?
So we're going to, again, poor Instagram. They're like, we've heard this like 20 times now, you guys. No, tonight we're going to be talking about what we choose to discuss with our children.
Okay.
And why and how we hold back.
Mm-hmm.
I think you and I are both pretty open with our kids, sometimes to a fault.
Yeah, I know I am completely, especially with my son. Him and I talk about everything, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I mean, the kid has more life skills and knowledge than most people 10 times his age.
Yeah.
You know?
And you do discuss all areas of life. I think we're both really, I think we're both alike in that when we see a life lesson, an opportunity to teach a life lesson to our children, we jump on it, right? I mean, you and I both are pulling our kids aside and we're like, okay, so in this area of life, don't do this or behave that way or know this. And I think they're kind of like all rolling their eyes.
Yeah.
In the back of their heads, like,
Like one of our viewers was saying, like having age-appropriate discussions, and that's, I feel like there's different topics with different appropriations.
Right.
But for instance, my 12-year-old son can tell you all about credit scores and how to work credit scores because that's an important thing,
It matters.
But I'm like, no one ever taught me that type of stuff when I was young.
No.
You learned it later,
right.
And now people play video games and social media on their phones. I play credit score on my phone.
You do. You're on Credit Karma. Little plug to Credit Karma. I can't get on Credit Karma because I've had too many last names.
This is a true story, people.
It's very true. It's like your social matches with too many last names. We have no idea who you are. And red flag, red flag, red flag. Yeah. So the joke continues at my expense. Just
Is that something you teach your kids?
Here, there's another
first?
comment. What?
before marrying someone, check their credit score.
That is it matters.
It's funny, but it kind of matters because that will affect you the rest of your life. Now, I don't think that it should dictate true love and a good relationship. However,
man, like if we're going to go into that, well,
sorry, I just took us on a tangent.
yeah, that's fine though, because what I do tell my kids is like love is a choice. So love is a verb. So when we're talking about love, it isn't just the feeling that comes along with like the lust and that you're enamored with someone, but it really is like you have to choose to wake up and do life with this person every day. And that means buying a home. That means going through debt together. That means, what is our budget going to look like? Do you want to eat out all the time? Do you want to make meals at home all the time to save money? Finances play a huge part.
If I would have shaved my face before you met me, or when would you still have
I like
married
trying
me?
not to look at you
Everyone's
right now.
laughing at Instagram already knows. I have a shaved face right now. And
You guys,
that's because
I'm dying inside.
she loves my beard, but one of my many hats I wear, I'm required to wear a respirator for.
You like suction on your face?
Yeah. So I don't, anyways, so I have to be able to put on a respirator right now.
Yeah, which is also why we're recording earlier
Super
in the
early.
day. He has to go to work. He leaves
I
at
have
the
to
house
be at a nuclear
5.
power plant in a couple hours. So
Yeah. So anywho, the beard being gone makes my heart sad. But luckily you're gone all night, so it doesn't matter.
you don't have to look at me.
That's all right. I always tell him I'm just going to shave my head.
Yeah, I'll love you more.
That's lovely.
I'm just kidding.
So going back to topic. So what do we choose to tell our children? And I'm going to say specifically, like, let's talk about blended family stuff, right? So kids are always wanting to make sense of divorce. And until they get a concrete answer and one that they can have make sense, because I think a lot of times when kids question why my parents get divorced, parents tread very lightly, as they should. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going to keep digging until they get an answer that's concrete. And so I guess that goes back to being age appropriate. What you're going to tell a 3-year-old versus a 7-year-old versus a 13-year-old versus a 30-year-old is going to look a little bit different. It's kind of like you give an answer. Like my answer when my kids were 3 was mommy and daddy could not stop fighting. And that was really not a loving household for you to grow up in.
Yeah.
And that's where it started.
Okay. I remember you having those conversations.
Yeah. Because they always want to know. It doesn't even matter how happy you are with your current spouse and how wonderful your family is doing. That none of that matters. They still want to go back to that. So I think that you build on it. You give a very basic, true answer. Don't lie to kids because they figure it out. And they'll start asking both parents. That's another thing you need to keep in mind. I mean, I was in my late 20s when I finally asked my dad, or maybe it was my early 20s. It was a decade ago when I asked my dad, what happened? What was your side of things? And that took a lot of courage for me to ask him that. Believe it or not, we didn't have a close relationship. And to get back that answer was kind of like, and then the truth lied somewhere in the middle. I got my mom's answer, my whole life, my mom had the same answer. Then I finally got my dad's answer. I'm like, oh.
At least she's sticking to her story.
Well, I was like, okay, so the truth lies somewhere in the middle. And I think that as long as, kids are going to, always want to know.
Well, that's a good lesson too, Don't give them maybe the full detailed version story. Because I mean, for instance, if I gave my kids the full detailed version story, there'd be a lot of bashing of.
There was a virgin story?
No, definitely not. But you know what I mean? It would be a lot of me putting down their mother because the way things happened. And they don't need to know that part of it. Right?
Right. Well, and some things just aren't your children's business.
That's it. Yeah.
I don't think your bedroom habits are ever your children's business.
That's kind of the line in the sand.
I think you have to be, you kind of have to understand that. But I do think that, I mean, if your marriage ended in an affair, okay, I think your kids need to know that, but they can know that maybe later. You start with very basic, you start very small, you start very and make sure they understand that it wasn't their fault. I think kids are very egocentric, right? Kids make everything, especially the younger they are. The world revolves around them. Everything's about them. So it must be my fault. And I think that's something that you always have to go, mommy and daddy, mom and dad. We decided this had nothing to do with you. And I think that's I think people really understand that. And
Right.
know
And
that,
well, and like one
but
of the
it
viewers,
needs to be said.
like one of the viewers, Meg just said that that mom and dad are better people apart from each other. They're becoming the best mommy and daddy that they can be apart from each other.
Yeah.
You know, and that's
right.
Yeah, it's a big.
And that's such a great thing. But to add on to that too, you need to, keeping with it's about the kids. You know, I always tell my kids, and still do and always have, that they are way better off in two loving households with two like their lives are better, because I know without a fact that two loving households are better to grow up in than one toxic, hateful, hurtful, no happiness, fighting household. This is a way better. It's a lesser of two evils, right? I mean, divorce isn't great for kids, but neither is staying in a home that they're going to see a destructive relationship as a model to follow. I don't think
Yeah,
that's
and it's only going to
good.
set them up in the future for
Yeah.
non-healthy relationships. And it's funny, you just had that same conversation with the youngest like a week ago. I heard you explaining this to her.
And mind you, we've been divorced since she was 2. She's 9. We're still having these conversations. She's still trying to make sense of it.
And again, it'll go.
She always will. It's
it'll
fine.
go until your 30s.
Yeah.
You know, when she just finally has had enough therapy. No, I'm just kidding.
No, but mind you, she loves both families. You know, she loves all step parents. Yep. She loves everyone. And so I think parents tend to get defensive too when they make it like, oh, they're asking questions, and so that must mean they're very insecure with our family or what we're doing. And that's just not the case. You know, I mean, it's just they always want to make sense of the world around it. You know, why do I have to wear my seatbelt? Why do I have to brush my teeth?
Right.
Why do I have to wash dishes? Why do I have to go to school? Why do I have to go to the bathroom?
Yeah.
In the toilet.
Can I welcome some of our new viewers?
Please do.
One of the ladies is saying that her husband watches our show.
Woo!
And that's how she found us.
Nice.
So she found you on Instagram and our Instagram. And well, welcome to
Hi, you guys.
all the
Thanks,
new people. And if you're listening to us, welcome. And there are other outlets than podcast, but podcast is all the rage.
It is.
Yeah.
It's easy to listen to while you're doing
awesome.
the dishes.
Or driving down the freeway.
Or at work bored.
Yeah, at work bored, yeah.
Or, trying to get Hey, so our friend Jess. Hey, Jess.
Hi, Jess.
She agrees with me that beards are all the rage. She does not. She's not amused when her husband shaves either.
No, neither are you. I'm not. The dogs got mad at me. The littlest dog has never seen me without, like, he's only a few months old. He's never seen me without a beard, and he kind of quivered and
he barked at you when you walked in at 4 a.m.
He did.
I was like, what is happening?
I had to go. And then I came in, said hi to him, and he burrowed himself under the covers. I don't know if you felt it. All right. Nobody loves me anymore.
That's true.
Yeah.
Especially the littlest.
Just go out and make money. You come back, you grow a beard, we'll love you again.
Dude, he gets it.
Yeah, I get
he
it.
So gets us.
I know. I'm so intellectual.
All right. So the divorce thing. I mean, how much have you shared with your kids about your divorce?
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
Up to the point to where they don't have details, but it was it's such a hard thing to explain why you're divorced with the kids or to the kids when we've talked about it before. It ultimately, I fought for my marriage for a solid 1.5 years before finally letting go of that fight.
Yes, you did.
Giving it up.
That's right.
So how do you explain that to your kids that mommy and daddy are divorced, and especially when that's going on, and be like, but this isn't daddy's decision? They're like, well, why is it happening? So I'm like, how do you do that without putting down the other person?
Right, because you look like the jerk. Because you have no power.
Right.
Like they're looking to dad to fix it because that's what dad does.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Dads fix it.
Right.
And when you can't fix it, their little brains explode.
Right, because you're be all end all.
And then you feel like a jerk. Like,
Yeah.
I was going to cuss, but then you get mad at me.
I know that I have to press the buttons and edit and no, please don't.
But you get it.
After the podcast, you can cuss all you want.
Thanks.
But
was that hard as a man?
Very hard because it's out of control. It's out of my control. But then after that year and a half, and as things are going, and I'm like, wow, I'm in such a better place now. She's in such a better place now. Like you were just talking about, the whole family's in a better place now. Mommy's better, daddy's better. We're better people. We're in a better place. It's been easier for them to see and me to explain it to them. And my thoughts and my feelings have all flipped on that. So now I can be like, yeah, it's great. I'm in a happy, loving marriage. You guys are in a happy, loving household.
Right.
And at the other house, you're in a happy, loving household, right? And that might not be the situation for everyone, but at least if you're in a better place, that's at least 50% of that battle. That's half of that battle right there. Now, you can't control the other situation and what's going on in the other household, but if you can control your situation, you can be in a good, happy, loving household and marriage and give them something to model,
That's right.
model that after. That's enough.
Right.
Just because it's a failing test score in high school doesn't mean it's a failing test score in life.
Right.
If they can see half of that modeled correctly, that's greatness right there.
Right. And I think it's, interesting because we are on two different ends of the spectrum, right? You had no choice in how your marriage ended, and I am the one that walked away in mine. I mean, it takes two. So I say that meaning it takes two to get us to the place of someone walks away.
Years of
right?
hardship, yeah.
So, but as someone when I guess what I'm saying is like I was very confident. I had done a lot of soul searching, a lot of, it was still very hard, but when I left my marriage, I was for sure this is the right thing for my kids, for myself, and even for my ex-husband. I mean, he was miserable. I was miserable. The kids were growing up like, why is daddy talking to you that way? And so I knew it was the right thing. For you, though, you kind of, like you said, felt out of control, like you had no say. So what would, and people that's normal for half of our listeners probably have found themselves in your situation. What do you tell kids when you're in that low of lows? Before you're able to flip it around and see the blessings. What did you say? Like, how do you discuss it with them?
That's a hard thing because you want to kick and scream and yell and shout, and you've got so many emotions in your body. You have anger, you have love, you want to fix everything, you want to be the best person possible, but you're also angry because the situation and the things that are happening and everything out of your control.
Right.
So really, and it was such a hard thing for me to do. You really need to just tell them without lying, without sugarcoating things. You need to give them enough information without bad-mouthing, without putting down the other spouse or the situation.
Which must be so hard if you've been wronged.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, the kids aren't looking for a side at all. The kids don't want sides. The kids just want a comforting answer.
Yeah.
So if you can give them some type of comforting answer,
such as what?
Like that we're gonna be better off. We're gonna be better parents. It's healthier for us. You guys are gonna have a happier household. You give them encouragement.
You give them hope to hold on to.
Mommy, wrong daddy. She's this, she's that. Calling her a bunch of names and.
That only hurts the kids. Please hear that.
That only hurts the entire situation.
Yeah. And that gets back to the other parent.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean.
Yeah. And I'm not saying I was squeaky clean through the whole thing, but I did my very best to try to make it as good as possible. Because then now, years later, the kids are growing up and they're like, dang, dude, dad used to say a lot of mean things about mom. And, the kids are going to figure this stuff out on their own. We don't have to tell them. I know we've said that 1,000 times.
It's just really hard, that waiting game. Right. It is. It's really hard, especially when you're wronged or hurt or there's rumors. I said this a million times. We live in a very small town. And with both of our divorces, I mean, rumors were flying that were so ridiculous and not true.
Right.
And people really don't think that kids hear these rumors, but you have to understand other kids have parents who talk and often talk in front of kids, and things do come out in weird ways. I was in the grocery store one time and a lady came up to me and my kids were present and like, "Oh, have you heard what's being said?" And I kind of have to be like, my kids are here.
Right.
Give me a call sometime or text. Like I had to like redirect because everybody just wants all the information out there and that just hurts kids. So I think you also have to teach your kids that lesson too, that just because they hear something doesn't make it true, and to always, invite them to come talk to you about that. I think that really helps kids just to know that you're not shutting down conversations, but really have an open door policy, because they're going to be super confused. They're going to have a lot of questions, right? And a lot of parents are like, I grew up with parents like this, like, don't ask me, none of your business. And while some of that's true, I think that kids will make up their own script in their head if you don't tell them. Mm-hmm. They will take all the little untruths and form one big untruth if you don't take the time to address their questions and address what they need to know, what their little minds are seeking to know.
Right.
So, yeah.
Going back real quick, you were talking about being the one who ended your marriage and your second marriage. And
I did not end my first marriage.
Right.
I had no choice. My second marriage.
So you've been on both sides of it.
So
now
the third time I just need to die.
All right.
I mean.
So looking back, is there any regrets? Because I'm sure a lot of our listeners are like, yeah, I've been in your shoes. Was that the right call? Was it the right thing, tearing our family apart, or, whatever it is? What's your thoughts on that?
Like, have I had any regrets?
Yeah. Are you like, there's not been a day in your life
no.
where, man.
There has not been one moment of one day. No. I really genuinely, because I think people have to understand that I was in counseling, I was in therapy for a year and a half, and I'm a Christian woman. And so I was in church a lot. I was praying a lot. I was in all the ways trying to figure out what to do because I was so miserable. I mean, my son would come up and ask me, why does daddy talk to you like that? We could not have a conversation without fighting. It was such a toxic, name-calling, threatening, I won't get it. Anyway, it was just a very bad situation. And he wasn't happy too. I was also, you've heard me in fights with you. I mean, could you imagine that every day?
Yeah.
No. So on both sides, it was very, very bad. And we tried marriage counseling and that didn't work for us. And so by the time, I feel like I exhausted I exhausted everything, marriage counseling, personal therapy, just on my knees praying to God. And, I was in church one Sunday and I was by myself because I'd often go to church alone. And I'm sitting there in tears, being so miserable and unhappy and confused. And I'm going to share this with you guys because I think it might help someone. So here I go. In therapy, I'd always, I can white knuckle this till they're 18. I can white knuckle this till they're 18. Is that what I need to do? That's where I was. I was wrestling with, do I stay till they're 18 and blow their worlds apart? Or do I go now and blow their worlds apart? Because I didn't ever think that this was going to be a lasting marriage because it would have been a lifetime of just misery from both parts. And my therapist told me this. He said, Julie, kids are really pliable. So if this marriage is going to end, you need to do it while they're young enough to recover, right? My daughter was super young. My son was super young, 7-ish, maybe 6, 7. And they're like, their brains are pliable, they adapt. Their adaptability is much better younger when they're older. When they're 18 and you blow their worlds apart, then they start, my whole parents' marriage was a lie.
Right.
They don't forgive you because they feel like it was a lie. Or
Well,
if they had a horrible upbringing, then they're like, why did you guys put us through this for 18
That's it. You've
years?
raised them in this horrible toxic household for the last 18 years.
Right.
And then finally the nail in the coffin is you guys splitting up.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, that sucked, but now this sucks.
So that was the discussion I had in therapy, but I'm, again, Christian woman, and I never wanted to put my kids through what I went through. I'm a daughter. I'm a stepchild, divorced child, kid, whatever. So I was wrestling with the religious piece, and I just remember being in church. I'm worshiping. I'm in tears, and I just get this calm rush over me, and God in that moment is going to sound like, it sounds crazy when I retell it, but I'll never forget. I remember exactly where I was sitting. Like, God just released me from my marriage, and I just, because I don't think, I got this peace, and then it was that God wouldn't want this for any of his children, right? This is not what marriage is. This is not a godly marriage. This is not what marriage was meant to be. It was borderline anyway. So when that happened, when I felt released by God, where I felt like I was good with my maker, then there was no turning back. Then I was able to step away, and I had zero regrets, and not for a single day do I regret it. And, I look at my ex-husband now, he is so happy, he found the love of his life, and my kids are so happy there that this was like just affirmation that I just, but it took a lot of heartbreak and a long time. Like, it was a 1.5-year process. And, I think that he would thank me now. Yeah. That took a long time, but.
And there's your shirt for the week. No regrets. We'll spell it like
those
the Milky Way commercial
already,
though, and it'll say no regrets.
Yeah. I don't know. How do you feel that? I mean, does it matter to you that I walked away from my marriage? How does that make you feel?
No, knowing all the circumstances, there's a couple things to that. Like, I know that if I treat you like crap and just give us a terrible marriage, I know that you're willing to walk away. So that gives me a little bit of what's even the word? I know that it takes two to make that happen. I also know your whole backstory,
Yeah.
So no, I mean, I think we have a wonderful marriage, but also, is there the possibility of anything happening? Yeah, I think so.
On both ends,
On
right?
both ends.
You can't make someone stay. If you
You
really
can't
wanted to
make
go,
someone stay.
you would
can't.
go.
Yeah,
I
can't. Do I ever think that you would go cheat on me? No, but is the possibility there? It's always there. Am I going to hang my hat on that and worry about it every single day? No, I can't control you. All I can do is control myself and our marriage and give you and us the best marriage and relationship I can possibly do.
Yeah.
It's really just up to us.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think I wrote a post about this. Like, it is completely up to you and your spouse to either have the happiest of marriages or the most miserable. Like, you guys really do. We hold all the power to that.
Right.
You guys all hold all the power to that. So Jessica asked me a question. I'm going to go ahead and read it for those of you who can't see. She asks, Julie, I'm curious if your feelings changed about the end of your first marriage where you were on the other side of it the second time around, right? So my first marriage, I was left, and that was a pretty horrific story. He came home one day out of the blue and said, I love myself more than I can ever love you, and I have to go find out who Chris is, and I can't do that being married to you anymore. Like, out of the blue. And mind you, my first husband was super romantic all the time. So, the day that this happened, he had mailed me a love letter from where he was in LA doing mechanic school or whatever. And so it was just a really weird day. I got this love letter in the mail, and then he walks in the door, and it was all over his face, like something was wrong. And I started panicking, like, what happened? Like, who did you sleep with in LA? Like, it was like that. Like, it was like you walk through the door of just shame and regret. And And then he told me that, and he was very confident, and that was that. And there was nothing I could say, nothing I could do. And I didn't see it coming at all. I was super blindsided. Mind you, I was super young and starry-eyed. And so that was completely shocking. And I think that that's what made it so I don't know how to answer that question, because I had no control, nor did I feel like I deserved that. Like, it wasn't about me at all. It was all about him. And
that makes it hard, because that's how my marriage ended.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we didn't have the best of marriage and the best that it could be.
Right.
And I am a lot better husband now, and probably a lot better father now. I mean, kids have always been a huge priority, but you learn a lot from it.
Sure.
But when you don't hold any of that power, there's a lot of what ifs, and what if I would have done this differently, and what if I would have been like this, and you know, ultimately, like, you can't think like that. It's what can I do now to make myself better? What can I do now to make myself a better dad, to make myself a better husband for the next wife? Because I'll tell you,
for the next wife.
Well, if you're gonna get remarried, but I'll tell you, I learned a lot from that first.
Yeah, you grow up.
Yeah, and
it's true.
I treat you a lot better than I treated her. Not that I treated her like garbage or trash.
Well, let's hope that we all better ourselves.
That's
right?
what I mean. I'm like, I know I do things differently now.
Same.
You know?
Yeah.
Anyways.
No, for sure. So, I mean, I think that my second marriage, it took both of us to break it apart. And I think that if anybody was inside of our behind closed doors would have seen the progression of, like, it just was in shambles. So it was different. I wasn't heartbroken. I was heartbroken my second marriage ending for my kids, because I didn't have kids in my first marriage. So I was heartbroken for my kids. I wasn't heartbroken for myself. And when my first marriage ended, I was devastated. It was like, he took my virginity and then I'll never get that back again. Like, I was never going to be able to say I was married one time for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I had the same type of.
And it was panicking to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, how unfair is that? Like, you just robbed me of that. And my parents were divorced. Yeah. And I wasn't going to get divorced because my parents were divorced and I wasn't going to. And to have that uncontrollably happen to you.
I get that.
Yeah, it was a lot to wrestle with. And so the second time around, it's like, well, my cherries popped already, whatever. I'm just kidding, you guys. I don't really mean that. But I was I was just very confident in the decision I had. So it was very different. I don't even know if that answered your question. But back to that, back to our topic at hand, what we discuss with our kids. So when things get tough co-parenting, because that's what we're living right now. We're living the co-parenting things. I know you can't relate because you co-parent in such a beautiful way.
Well, but we're fortunate we got to. Issues. I literally just had a little 5-minute meeting with my ex right before this. She's picking up our son, and I met her where she picks him up to sign some paperwork for his medical stuff. And it just works good when you keep it about the kids, you keep it on topic, and there wasn't a single thing discussed about outside of our children in that 5 or 10 minutes that we met and signed papers. Right. It was literally about the topic, and it's not like we're like weird, like one of us starts to talk about that and like, oh, I can't talk about that. Right. It's just a common understanding that we don't talk about anything else. Yeah. We don't make it weird. It's not. Right. But when it comes to I know you don't deal with it a lot now. I deal with it a lot now. Just tough co-parenting where you just disagree and you're so frustrated. What do you discuss with the kids about that? If the other parent is making irrational, unreasonable decisions and your kids are caught in that, right? Because it affects the kids, because you're only talking about the kids. I agree with that. So how much do you tell your children about that? So let's give an example, and this isn't my example. This is going to be your example. You have no hard examples. I mean, I can dig some up. Everything's perfect in your world. Yeah. Unicorn farts and glitter. Talk about we're gonna talk about
Shit
yours
show of a
because
life.
here we go. There's our beep out button. Thanks.
No problem.
Anyways, so I'm gonna turn off the screen if you keep doing that. So for instance, your daughter wants to play co-ed hockey, right? She's young. She wanted to start doing that at what, about 6, 7 years old?
Yeah.
Okay. Your ex says no, she's not gonna play.
We're doing a real life example, not
Yeah.
hypothetical.
No.
Okay, why not?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Cool.
Says no.
Yeah.
She's not gonna play co-ed sports. Then.
Mind you, okay, can we just paint the picture? Co-ed hockey at 5 years old, they're head to toe in pads. I mean, you push them over, it's like a marshmallow. They just kind of bounce.
Yeah.
They don't, there's no skin.
There's so many reasons why he says no. Is it because it's co-ed? Like that's the excuse, right?
Yes, I get told she wants to play. Mind you, my husband's a hockey player.
Has been since I was young. Son's a hockey player.
And so it's natural that my daughter's going to want to, which was really sweet that she wanted to come into your world.
Yeah. And we've taken her out to play, and she loves it. She has a good time.
She'd been awesome.
We've tried her in soccer, right?
She
picked daisies, and
soccer is the worst.
She scored goals for the other team.
Yeah, she was
the only
pissed.
goal she ever scored.
Yeah, for the other team. And then she'd get mad. She's like, I don't want to run anymore. And she just stand in the middle of the field. And I'm like, oh, child, we got to go. But she's like, no, I'm not leaving. Anyway.
Right.
So that's a real example.
So then that comes down, you know. So you have to explain that to her, like, no, Dad doesn't want you to. And again, you've always said, he who says no has all the power, right?
True.
So then something like a dance class or there's been other ones.
Yeah. So I tell am super honest with my kids. I tell them the reason their dad doesn't want them to do the things that they want to do.
So now are they your reasons or are they the reasons that he gives you?
No, because I'm fine with it.
I feel like it's because it's.
Maybe this is wrong. I tell my kids, sorry, you can't do this because Dad says no.
Oh, yeah, which is not the truth, or that's not a lie.
And
that's
then I
100%
will
the
say,
truth.
Dad does not want you to participate in co-ed sports. Go talk to Dad about that, which they won't.
Now, this is something that I had to get you to do because for the longest time, you didn't want to tell your kids
that's true
that they couldn't do things. You kind of wanted to pull the rug over it for the longest time. I'm like, you're going to be pulling the rug over, hiding this from them for all these years.
Yeah.
And that took a couple years.
Yeah.
I'm like, then they're going to later on in life go, why wasn't I ever able to do this? And they're never going to figure it out on their own. Now, if you're honest with your children about why they can't, and you're not making things up, you don't go to your children and say, or your daughter and say, well, he doesn't want you to play because Eric plays and he coaches, and that's why. That's not the specific reason. You're saying it's because he doesn't want.
We were highly suspicious that was part of it.
We were highly suspicious, but he didn't say that, so that's not what you give to your kids. You give your kids only factual information.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and things
that's my point.
And being just honest, like, this is what your dad thinks. I don't extend upon what he thinks.
Right, because then you're just making things up. And
Yeah.
Rather, if it's 99% probably the truth,
right,
or it's not, that's not what was said, so that's not what you give your children. Otherwise, you are creating a rumor in your household that is then going to eventually probably end up back at the other household,
right,
and that's going to create a fight.
Right.
Right, or issues or problems.
Right.
Now, on the flip side of that, if you're the dad and you're saying, no, you can't play co-ed hockey or sport or whatever, and that's not really the reason, you better be careful because later on, which we've seen, things start to contradict themselves, right? And we see them contradicting themselves. So if we're seeing that, the children are seeing that. And
it's already been brought up.
That's what I'm saying. The children are growing up and it's starting to contradict themselves. So that's kind of the both sides of it.
Yeah, warning.
Right? So don't make stuff up in your household and don't lie to your kids. It doesn't mean you have to give them every excuse and example or let them know everything going on, but don't sugarcoat things and hide things from them because you think it's going to protect them. It's going to keep them out of the clear, because eventually our kids are going to know all, you know?
Well, kids are just smart and they figure it out for themselves. And, you know, parents' behaviors, you know, we all have patterns. So what's your parents' pattern? Is it being two-faced? They're going to find out real quick. That's a really hard thing to realize when you're a child. I realized that before with my own parents. And it's hard, but I think that's right. I think that, to get back to what you said earlier, I did struggle with a lot because my parents were bad-mouthed to me. So growing up in a divorced family, my dad would always bash my mom. My mom always had like not so nice things to say about my dad, and they were always involved in a nasty custody battle, and I would hear about it.
Yeah. And now you hearing about that, did that make things better for you? Were you glad that your mom was bashing your dad and telling you about it? And were you glad that your dad was bashing your mom and telling you about it? How'd that make you feel?
No, well, it makes you confused.
Right?
It confuses kids because I think kids are born into this world wanting to love both parents.
Right.
And when you're being told, when parents are bashing each other, it puts kids in a very confused place because they don't know what to believe. And then they're inner wrestling with, I want to be free to love this person, but this person is so bad. My other parent is telling me this person is so bad and so wrong and so hurtful and so evil, but I'm yearning to love them. And this creates such a confusing internal pull within kids that's just not fair to put that on them. They're not emotionally equipped to handle that. They can't. Their brains aren't developed enough to work that out. And so to start that off with both parents bashing them as each other is just really unfair to kids. And so just don't do it. And if you are having to talk about your ex and the co-parenting or the divorce, you know, keep it factual and keep it with a little emotion as you possibly can have. And just wait and be patient, because they'll figure out who their other parent is on their own. And actually, when that happens, it's really heartbreaking. So know that too. Be there when they're 30, figured it out, and heartbroken. They're probably going to need you to love on them. Yeah, but they'll respect anyway, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
The topic that we were talking about with the kind of flipping the truth and the no co-ed type thing, brings up a question that one of our listeners asked.
Sure.
And that is, how do you deal with your ex not wanting another man in your child's life? Or
I remember this one.
You know, and I've kind of been on both sides of that, and I feel like that's kind of on topic with this. Yeah, because when my ex started dating who is now her husband, her and I have both known this person for a long time, and I knew the type of person he was, and the type of children I wanted my kids to be, or our kids to be, and that really upset me. And I was like, this isn't the type of person or role model I want around our children.
We bonded over that.
Right? Now, on the flip side, I have been that guy. Your ex didn't want me around. He was angry about me. And I don't think he didn't know me. You know, you don't know me. Just kidding. He didn't know me. He didn't have anything to go off of. I mean, yeah, rumors can be rumors, you know, like I'm sure he tried to get some type of information on me, and people said what he wanted to hear.
Our exes were talking to each other at some one point. That was fun. Good times in the beginning.
Right. So, what do we do if our exes don't want someone around, you know?
Well, I think it's...
And this isn't even men and women, because you were kind of in the same boat, and you had a history with who he's with now.
Yep.
And you had a dark, dirty history that caused rifts in families.
Broke families apart.
Broke
not
families
my own,
apart.
but yeah.
Because of things that she had
done. We'll
Yeah.
just leave it at that.
Yeah.
So what I had to learn.
Should I get the bleep button ready?
I know. So what I had to learn there, Eric, is, unless there's abuse, you really have no control. So when it's scheduled custody time, you don't really get a say in who's around your kids and who's not. And judges will say that too. Kids have a right to form relationships with the other parents' friends and family. And and same thing, in your household, my ex couldn't really, he had no leg to stand on that you couldn't come over. Like, it doesn't matter. He doesn't have power. So you're kind of powerless when it's not your custody turn. And that never feels good. And that often leads to like, how can I hurt this person a different way because I can't control what's happening? So I'm going to spread lies. I'm going to spread rumors. I am going to make co-parenting as tough as humanly possible. I'm going to be mean. I'm going to be rude. I'm going to send nasty texts. I mean, there's all kinds of backlash that comes with making a choice such as having someone around your children that you don't want. But I mean, so sad, too bad they don't really have power. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's just kind of, you got to do what you think is right.
Yeah.
And you can't really live your life. You can't live your personal life still looking at your ex, right? Like, I can't move on with you with my ex right here and like, okay, what does that do? You got to leave him behind.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and whoever I was going to be with, you were damned if you did, damned if you don't, you weren't going to get a pass regardless. I could have been with anyone in the world and she wasn't going to be happy about it, which is kind of ironic because she's the one who left, right? But you're also like, I don't care what people think about me. Right. Well, and vice versa. So what I had to do, the way I coped with this and dealt with this is I kind of went hermit for a little while. I'm like,
you went off grid.
I'm just not going to deal with any of it.
Yeah.
And by then you start changing your thoughts and to a point where you just kind of stop caring. You just have to accept it, just bite the pillow and accept it. And then eventually what I started doing,
sorry, I always think of biting the pillow in a sexual way.
and accept it. So what I would do is then, I'd always check in. I wouldn't just completely let things go, but I'd always check in with the kids. And then I would, you kind of learn, okay, well, everything's all right over there. And actually, for a little while, it wasn't. My son was fighting with his, at the time, her boyfriend, but now stepdad.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of things. So once things start to kind of smooth out and become like, all right, this guy's sticking around, he's going to be here for a while.
Mm-hmm.
What I did to kind of counteract it was I started encouraging the kids to show respect and behave. Whereas I've seen in other relationships and blended families in the past, years ago, some of my friends, they encourage their kids to give the other parent hell and, talk back. And the only thing that does is teaches your children bad habits.
Oh, yeah. They're going to react in
disrespect.
The same way. Yep.
That's it. And eventually it's going to come back to your household.
That's right.
You're the one that taught me this. You're the one that told me this. So I looked at it super internally and just flushed my pride down the toilet and said, just behave while you're over there. And I tell them this all the time, especially my son.
When you're like, go kick him in the balls.
Yeah.
Cut his hair off and while he's sleeping.
Yeah. But I'm always like, hey, be on your best behavior.
Yeah.
Hey, behave.
Right.
Are you being a good boy for mom? Because it's always my son I'm worried about. You being good? Okay, be on your best behavior.
Yep.
Have you ever heard me send him back to the other house and that not be part of the goodbye speech?
Nope. You're always encouraging. You're always putting
And yeah,
a positive spin on it. And that's important because
and that's not, and that's not to like toot my own horn, but that's to basically set your kids up for just life success. Like, yes, you know that I'm not their biggest fan, but doesn't mean that you don't treat your household with respect any way across the board. Because again, this is going to translate to when you're an adult and you're in school and you have a job. You might not like everyone in your environment, but you better treat everyone well and with respect, right?
Yeah, you have to learn how to just get through the day.
Right.
For sure. What do you do when your kids come home? And this has happened in your situation especially. Okay. It hasn't really happened in mine. My kids are kind of iron curtains. They don't really share with me what goes on in the other home.
Yeah.
Which is odd.
Yeah.
But
they're very, very reserved. They don't talk about anything.
But when your children come home and they say, I'll sit in your case, Mom was saying some pretty horrible things about you. What do you say to your children about that?
So your first reaction is you want to jump on it and you want to defend and fight, right?
Yep.
That's everyone's reaction. My approach to that is stopping. For instance, my son came home and said, Mom said you never graduated high school, and you kind of stop and laugh like, and I graduated high school, but you kind of, you want to get mad about it and put her down or the other person down. And I basically stopped and said, do you think that's true? Well, no, but that's what Mom says. Well, that's not true, and I can show you, pull out my diploma, show him. And he's like, oh, okay. I'm like, well, why do you think she said that? So I make him think past just the argument.
Right.
Why do you think she said that? Well, she was mad about this, that, and the other thing. I said, okay, so her reaction was then to be mad, take it out on me, and say something. Do you think that's the right way of going about it? So I show him the whole situation. I basically make him recap what happened over there just based off of what he's told me and kind of break it down. So he sees that it's a frustration in one person. Mm-hmm. It's not a fight between two.
Right. And that's a coping mechanism she uses.
Right.
Because she's just angry and that's her reaction.
Right. So rather than me jumping on the bandwagon and creating it a fight, all that's going to teach him to do is he's stuck in the middle. He's watching how this happened. Now he would be watching Dad get angry and he'd watch a fight develop. And he would learn how to make a fight develop, right? Yep. So what I do is I show him how to shut down that side of it. And, like kids at school. Kid at school makes fun of you for, the haircut that you have, Do you think that kid truly hates your haircut and doesn't like you because of your haircut? No, it's probably something going on at home with this kid, and he's lashing out at another kid and bullying him because he's insecure about something or he's having a bad day. His parents were fighting about high school graduations. You know what I mean? So I make him see both sides of it and break it down. And now he realizes like, yeah, that's irrational. Dad's not mad because it's not the truth. And it kind of just gets left there.
Right.
So it shows him how to just let things roll off his back.
Yeah. And okay, so that was a distruth. But we all have our ugly sides. We've all done things we're not proud of.
I thought I was perfect. You already told me this. You already told the audience today that I was perfect. So
you're perfect.
Okay, thank you.
But in the times you've been imperfect.
Yeah.
But seriously, so what happens though when your ex tells a story that is true?
Yeah.
That is not flattering.
Right.
Which really like something you're not proud of. Do you just own it?
You have to. Otherwise, you're a liar, right? Otherwise,
there's nothing worse to your kids
shame
than
on
being
the
a liar.
other parent for bringing something like that up.
But you can't control that.
That's
right.
Right? So don't be the parent that does that to the other parent. But if it does, you own it, and you're not like, well, oh well, right? You own it, and you learn. You teach your kids a lesson. You teach your kids to learn from your downfalls and your mishaps and your shortcomings, right? You tell your kids like, yeah, mom or your daddy screwed up by doing that, and that I never should have done that, or I never should have handled it that way. But you don't make the same mistake I did. Learn from my mistakes.
Yeah.
And I think that should be life lessons in general. Your kids should always be, maybe not in that same way, but you should always be teaching your kids not to make the same mistakes you did.
Oh, for sure.
Because as a teenager, man, I was driving 100 miles an hour everywhere I could go as fast as I could. My kids aren't driving. Well, one of the kids are driving, and, she doesn't have a lead foot. But I'm like, you better bet my son is going to be the one wanting to do that. So I started teaching him now, like, look you can ruin lives. You can ruin your own life. You start teaching them these lessons now, and you instill lessons into them that you have learned over the time, and don't let them make the same mistakes.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think just turning every situation into a learning situation, and then also being able to own up to your mistakes is such a great thing to instill into your kids too.
And it's very freeing because, again, as Christian people, we do have God's grace, right? So letting our kids know, hey, we're not perfect, but just because we're not perfect doesn't mean that we're doomed and we're just going to go around and be trashy people, right? You teach them, like, listen, I make mistakes. I have made mistakes. I don't want you to make the same mistakes. Mm-hmm. But if you do make your own mistakes, you can learn from them.
Yeah, and you can help others, which is why we're here, right? Flashlight people.
Right.
Because it's unnecessary. If somebody's already learned the lesson, it's unnecessary for you to want to do the same thing to learn the same lesson.
Right.
But I think that's an immaturity that lives in us all. We have this immaturity streak that, we're different and we are going to do it better. And our life lessons are,
Mm-hmm.
money doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It matters.
It does, but
I'm
to what?
sorry,
But yes, but to what point? And
lifestyle. Maybe we don't say money. Maybe we say lifestyle.
No, but at the end of the day, it is money, but it also is how you deal with it. Because I know some terrible people that make tons of money, but I also know some really great people.
Are they happy? Those terrible people that make lots of money.
I mean,
are they happy?
Some are, some aren't. I know all walks of life, but what I'm saying
he knows
is
everyone, you guys.
I know you guys. Thanks for knowing me back. But you just teach them value in things.
Yeah.
And that's really that's the big lesson is
right.
Value. So we're just about there with our time. We're gonna lose Instagram here.
You guys, I have so much more to talk about though. How sad.
Oh.
I didn't even save that on the computer.
Here, you can have mine. Look at that.
Oh my gosh.
I'm a fixer.
So I guess the lessons here is be honest with your kids.
Yeah.
Be age appropriate with your kids. Do not lie. You can omit things that they shouldn't hear yet, but realize kids always want to make sense of the world they're living in. So if their world is a blended family, they're going to want to make sense of it. They want to know why you married, who you married, why did it fall apart? And I just think you need to always allow them to love their other parent, be honest about the other parent, and redirect to the other parent. Don't make the other parent's battle yours.
Right.
If the other parent is co-parenting in a frustrating way, redirect the kids. Go ask your other parent. Go ask your mom. Go ask your dad. I can't speak for them.
Yeah.
It's not necessary to speak for other people.
Yeah.
You're not those people.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be mindful when you talk to your kids, you guys. It matters.
It totally does. And they see all and they know all. And
they're smart. They're going to figure it out one day or another.
Right. So.
Thank
you everyone for tuning in.
We appreciate it.
And listening and watching us. And next week, I think we'll be back on a little bit more normal schedule. We'll probably do the
5:30.
Want to do the 5:30?
Yeah.
Okay. So next week it'll be 5:30. And podcasters, you'll just get it when you get it. But no, usually I'll process right afterwards and send it out to you. But
like us on Facebook, Instagram.
give us a thumbs up right now if you're watching us on YouTube. If you're getting anything
subscribe.
out of this, subscribe. Send this on, pass it on Facebook, and help our community, our blended family community, grow. Because it only helps all of us, and ultimately it helps our children, and that's the big importance.
That's right. And we need to stay married.
Yeah.
Stop breaking up blended families. Let's break the statistic.
Yeah, 70%.
We can do
rate.
better than that. I just know it.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks, you guys. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Bye.